James Cameron, storyteller, filmmaker, and now legendary explorer.
See you in the sunshine.
Okay.
For the first time in history, a solo man dive.
This is Deep Sea Challenger. Do you copy? Over.
To the deepest point in the world's oceans.
With a movie, you can always do another take. The ocean hasn't read your script. It's going to do what it wants.
This is his story of that record-breaking dive.
Welcome back, man. Welcome back.
And the opening of a new frontier. James Cameron's expedition has captured the world's attention.
The film director James Cameron of Titanic fame is famous for his epic movies. He's also a real-life adventurer.
This is so incredible. James Cameron
is on a mission.
This is an extreme dive.
Dangerous and unprecedented.
Historic scientific voyage.
The Mariana Trench.
The deepest known point on the planet.
An incredible 8 tons of pressure per square inch.
Depths so extreme, it would crush a man.
The journey into one of the planet's enduring mysteries.
All 7 billion people on the planet can't go to all these places. But if one person goes and they bring back the story, then everybody goes in spirit.
It took 7 years to get to this point. 7 years to go 11 kilometers. Cameron is bound for the alien and inhospitable depths of the Western Pacific Ocean. His target, a place known as Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench.
We're going to be fighting against the absolute limits of material science. Steel will be close to yield. Titanium would be close to yield at these pressures. This seemed like a very daunting thing. We didn't even know if we could do it.
The greatest obstacle, designing a sub that will hold up against the deadly pressures of the deep.
The design of the sub called for things that didn't exist.
Everything on the sub has to be adapted or invented to ensure he survives. Cameron controls the vessel in a 109-centimeter wide sphere that will be his fortress, protecting him from the pressure.
Just designing the sphere was a huge hurdle. It's holding back, you know, the force of the ocean, millions of pounds when you distribute it over the whole surface of the sphere. And if it buckles at pressure, it implodes. And when you're inside it, at the bottom, it's best not to think about it.
The design for Cameron's sub is a remarkable innovation.
That's it. Now I'm home.
Well, basically, when it's in its operating position in the water, you know, it's a big green vertical torpedo. It's kind of strange, you know. We're not flying like this through the water. We're flying like this through the water. The only example I can use from nature is a seahorse. A seahorse doesn't lie down and swim forward. It just swims around upright like that.
Cameron's dive to Challenger Deep is the first solo dive. However, when Cameron was a boy imagining the deep ocean, 2 men actually went there, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh.
I knew who Don was, you know, from my childhood. He was the deepest man in the world.
More than 7-mile plunge took the Trieste into a realm where the pressure on its hull was over 9 tons per square inch.
The vehicle I was in was completely different in size, shape, principle of operation compared to what he was doing. Of course, we were 2 people, where Jim was just 1. It wasn't until after we'd done the dive that people began to tell us how important it was. Not how important we were, but how important the dive was.
It was a monumental achievement, unmatched, until now. More than half a century later, with Don Walsh on his team, Cameron is headed back.
It was like the pinch me moment, as all the pieces came on. And we kind of couldn't believe it. It was really done.
The sub, christened Deep Sea Challenger, needs just a few more specialized pieces of gear. 4 Rolex watches. Rolex is a key sponsor of the expedition and set out to make a watch that could hold up to the pressure. Another Rolex, just like the one that was aboard the Trieste in 1960, is tucked inside.
But the sister watch, which was identical, came along with me, I think really more as a kind of a good luck totem, if you will. There was only one last thing to do put it in the water. And I kept telling everybody, okay guys, up until now, it's been a piece of sculpture. It's not a sub until it goes under and comes back. There's a certain moment in time, you can't postpone it any longer. You gotta get in the sub, and you don't really know what's gonna happen next.
At 7 meters long and weighing more than 10 metric tons, simply getting the sub into the water is a daunting challenge.
And I knew that it was going to be that last 30 feet was going to be the hardest of the whole journey, because you pick up a 11-ton mass.
Okay, Hammond, steady, guys, steady, 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 steady. Donnie, a bit more, steady.
And it's swinging on a 30-foot lifting sling. And all of a sudden, it's like a bell clapper. And every time it rolls more, it swings more. And you get that 11-ton mass pumping, pretty soon it's a wrecking ball.
Late January, sea trials are underway in shallow waters.
I had just made the 60-foot dive in Jarvis Bay, and the sub had checked out beautifully. We felt such a huge sense of confidence. There's nothing like that moment when there's nothing out in front of you but the ocean. Everything's in order, the technology's working, and you're gonna go. We were gonna do one more test dive, and it was also gonna be an opportunity to film a launch and a recovery using a helicopter. So Andrew and Mike DeGree, our underwater cinematographer, were off, getting the helicopter prepared, and we were just about to lift the sub into the water and do the launch. We got a radio call. There'd been an accident. Raced to shore, got to the accident site about 45 minutes later. And it was very clear that, the fire was complete, and that they were gone. It was the worst day of my life, really. And when I was there at the scene, I thought the expedition's over. You just feel like somebody's trying to tell you something. But then an interesting thing starts to happen. You start to think, well, what did these guys really stand for? They stood for a certain boldness of spirit, the spirit of exploration. I knew those guys really well, and they would have been, derisive in their laughter if they had thought we were going to punk out and not go. There were 10 reasons not to dive. And I said, you know what, we're diving. We're diving, we're going tomorrow.
How are you doing, John? Yeah, they're good. Yeah. Tonight's the night. Oh, yeah.
And we did. We just went out and dove.
First, 1,000 meters, 3,300 feet. 5 days later, 4,000 meters, 2.5 miles.
4,000 meters, when you're trying to get to 11,000 meters, 4,000 meters doesn't sound like much. Just happens to be deeper than Titanic.
The sub is performing well.
Then it came time to do the 8,000 meter dive. 27,000 feet. I start descending, everything's going well. As I'm going along, things are starting to fail and glitch one by one around the sub, and my displays are dropping out and then coming back on. And then my lights start to go off, and my bottom sounder's not working, and I'm still going too fast. The way it was failing, it got progressively worse as I got deeper.
Deep Sea Challenger, surface, do you copy? This is Deep Sea Challenger, do you copy, over?
James Cameron, on a final test dive, is plunging out of control into the depths.
My thrusters are cutting out. They'll run for about 30 seconds and then they'll stop. And then I'll take my hands off the controls, and then after another 30 seconds, they'll run again by themselves, and I can't get them to stop. So everything's going haywire, and I'm getting deeper and deeper.
The crew is powerless to help. Cameron discharges some weight and halts the descent.
Ram, this is Deep Sea Challenger. Do you copy? Over.
Deep Sea Challenger, surface. We copy you loud and clear.
Okay, guys. Copy you loud and clear.
Hey, about time.
Good news is, it's now officially the deepest diving submersible in the world. Bad news is, never saw the bottom. Had about 5 major systems failures that prevented me from going on.
All of the failures were traced to one line of computer code.
Because of one little line of computer code that they had added the night before, at my request. After a while, the number of files got so big it was shutting the computer down.
A quick rewrite of computer code, and the sub is deployed again on its last trial before attempting Challenger Deep.
That dive went beautifully. Yeah, a few little glitches here and there, but I was able to trim neutral as I approached the bottom, see the bottom visually, drive down, and I'll never forget the look of the sediment when I applied a little braking thrust, and there was just this smoke ring of sediment coming out from where my thrust had hit the bottom. It was just like landing a spaceship. It was the coolest thing.
The time has come to dive to Challenger Deep, the deepest point of the world's oceans. The sub is ready, the team is ready.
7 years has boiled down to now we only have like a week and a half. It's all boiled down to this little tiny narrow window that's remaining. So we're behind schedule and we get to Guam and we think, all right, the ocean better cooperate. And guess what? 30 knot winds, 30 gusting 40. And the whole sea is jacked up. And I remember looking out over the seawall. It's just this boiling cauldron of 4-meter swells. Just thinking, we can't launch in that. And just looking at it day after day with this, sinking feeling that the whole thing is just not gonna happen. Because right after that, I had to go for my premiere, for Titanic 3D. I had gotten 2 studios to step up and spend $20 million to convert Titanic to 3D, and I had to show up. Finally, I just said, look, guys, we're just going out. And we went out, and it was big. Way above anything that we could launch in.
As the ship plows through the swells, a glimmer of hope appears on the horizon.
While we were in transit, we looked at the long-range forecast and we saw a little dip in the wind. And it looked like it was going to last maybe a day and a half. And it was a couple of days out. I said, it looks like the ocean is giving me a choice. I can either make the dive, culmination of a 7-year project, or I can go to my premiere. If I don't go to the premiere, I'm gonna have 2 of the biggest studios in Hollywood history not speaking to me for the rest of my life. But guess what? We didn't come this far and not dive. And we have a window, and so we're going. So I said, all right, guys, here's the plan. Go to sleep now, get 3 hours sleep, 4 hours sleep. We're getting up at midnight, and we're starting our countdown at midnight. And we're gonna launch at 4 o'clock in the morning.
A farewell kiss from his wife.
Is this gonna be a PDA?
Yep.
Thanks, baby. Have fun. It will be fun.
I love you.
And some words of encouragement from Don Walsh, the only other man alive who's been there.
My words to him when he started down were, good luck, have fun.
All right, Jim.
All right, buddy.
Above all, have fun.
Have fun,
Okay.
exactly.
And I'm glad it's you taking back the record.
I got in the sub, and I was like, all right, here we go, guys. This is it. Next stop was gonna be 7 miles down. We did the launch. Actually went fairly smoothly. So far, so good. You get me in the water, I'm diving. I get in the water, the divers are all ready, they've adjusted the bags, I'm in the diving position, I've gone through all my checks, I'm ready to go. So I called release, 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 and that's the command, and they pulled quick releases and the sub drops. So I took off like a shot, fastest I've ever seen. The surface just receded, you know, just went away. And I'm looking at the depth gauge, and I'm like at 1,000 feet in the first like couple minutes. The sub just going like a bat out of hell.
As a veteran of the deep, Don Walsh knows well the greatest threats to the mission.
Pressure's the number one thing. The number two thing is fire. Because if you have a fire inside there, you better move quickly, because a fire can use up a lot of the oxygen, or if it's electrical fire, then the burning insulation can become toxic fumes. Catastrophic flooding, you know, it's all over. You're probably dead before you know you're dead, because at 8 tons per square inch, it's instantaneous. The cabin's just going to implode, and that's it.
On the way down, his sub shrinks by about 7 centimeters under the force.
It seemed like just a few minutes, and I'm going past Titanic depth. You know, then I'm going past Bismarck depth, 16,000 feet. Then I'm going past the deepest any sub on the planet other than our sub can dive. And at that moment, when I got to 27,000 feet, which was the deepest I had dived before, I still had 9,000 feet to go. And everything just stopped, and it got really quiet. And it was just descending, just watching the numbers, thinking, you know, going deeper and deeper and deeper.
As deep as Mount Everest is high, with still 2 kilometers to go.
So I start, you know, just fine-tuning my ballast, getting, you know, adjusting the camera so that I can see down, turning up the spotlight. And sure enough, as the altimeter counted down below, you know, 100, then 90, then 80, all of a sudden I saw a glow, and there was the bottom. And I just trimmed out neutral, just hovered, and just floated down, and made slow contact with the bottom. Didn't even make like a cloud of silt. I just sat there and I thought, here I am, 7 years, you know, and all that engineering and all that work and everything, and it worked.
After pausing to take it all in, Cameron starts to take core samples of the ocean floor.
The first thing I had to do was get a sample. So I deployed the science door, deployed the arm, got it out, pushed the core tube down, looked like I got a good sample, brought it back up. And just about that time, I think it was around that time, Susie called. She had taken over, she had commandeered the comm system, and she called me at the bottom of the ocean. So here I am in the most remote place on planet Earth that's taken all this time and energy and technology to reach. And I feel like the most solitary human being on the planet, you know, completely cut off from humanity, no chance of rescue, in a place that no human eyes have ever seen. And my wife calls me, which of course was very sweet, but, you know, let that be a lesson to all men. You think you can get away, but you cannot. Then what happened was the hydraulics failed, and the hydraulic fuel just kind of bubbled up in front of the window it was actually a burst hose fitting on the arm, right after I got the one sample. The arm just froze, and the door froze. I couldn't get anything to work. So I thought, well, at least I can still go exploring. So I started driving, and I decided to do a transect to the north and see if I could get all the way across the flat ponded sediment and work my way up the slope.
Then, another critical system failure.
I started to lose thrusters. At that moment, I could only turn. I couldn't go forward anymore. And so that was it. You know, I'd lost my hydraulics. I now had no ability to move forward. I thought about everything I could conceivably do. I was done. It was time to come back. So I called the surface. I told them I was ascending. And then there's that moment when you reach for the switch.
The sub is equipped with a pair of 300-kilogram weights that enable the sub to sink. If the weights don't drop as designed, there is a good chance Cameron will never see daylight again.
I knew exactly what it was supposed to do, how it was supposed to do it, but there's still that moment where you think, If this doesn't work, it's going to be a bad day.
Okay, weight's coming off.
You know, there's nothing like that feeling when you hear the shunk and you see on the camera, you see the weights fall out and hit the seafloor. And then at that point, sub took off. From 7 miles down back to the surface was 70 minutes. The sub was a rocket at that point, and it felt like a train car going. So that's the fastest I'd ever moved, you know, vertically underwater. It's almost like I could feel the ocean's grip slowly relaxing.
Keep it going, keep it going. Stay there, Donnie. Steady, guys, steady, steady. Yeah, that's good. Keep it coming, keep it coming. Slacking off, please, Harmon, slacking off.
Welcome back, mate. Welcome back. Outstanding.
So I got out, and the first person that I see is Don Walsh, which is amazing.
It hasn't changed a bit since you were down there.
He understood that we were there not only to do our own thing, but also to celebrate what he had done, what the pioneers, and by extension, all the pioneers that went before us.
Man, it's a heck of a ride. I mean, you're just screaming down, you know, and then you're screaming back up.
What I think this has done is it shines a spotlight on the fact that there's still a vast frontier here on planet Earth that's unexplored. Part of exploration is storytelling. In addition to taking the science data and the samples, you've got to take pictures and you've got to come back and you've got to tell the story. Not just the science story and not just the things the pictures are already telling you, but the story of what it felt like to go down there and to bear witness with your own eyes to something that nobody had ever seen before. That's the true spirit of exploration.